Having a good content management system is a necessity when building websites. I've been working on LearnVue for a couple years now, so I've used WordPress, Sanity, Markdown files, but recently I started using Storyblok for some of my pages and I've really liked it so far. So in this video, we're going to look at what is Storyblok, why I'm using it, and is it the right tool for you. Storyblok is a component-based CMS. This means that we can build Vue components like we usually would with all the different interactions and styles, and then in Storyblok, we can take these different components or blocks and then build out pages with them. We can also add options to these blocks that will get passed to our components as props. So the reason that I've been enjoying it so much is that it gives me full control of the components. And then using the visual editor, it's really easy for anyone to work with. They can see the page, click around, and then add or update content without having to worry about the underlying code. And also Storyblok has a great Nuxt module that's compatible with Nuxt 3, and we can set that up in just a few lines of code. So let's install it, add it to our Nuxt configuration, and then we need an access token. We can either get a public one that only has access to published content or a preview access token that access all of the draft versions of our pages too. And this is great for managing different dev and prod environments. So let's take a look at the home page. We can see it on the sidebar with the slug as home, and this is the current deployed version of LearnVue's homepage. So the way that I have my different blocks set up is that I have sections that act like Tailwind containers, a block for creating a 2-column layout, and then different blocks to handle things like headers, buttons, text, and even this little feature list on the side. And if we click any of these blocks, this editor pops up and we can change the content and immediately see the changes happening in our editor. Let's look at the code that's making this happen. In our Nuxt app, if we go to pages/index or the home page, we can see that we're saying const story equals use storyblok and then passing in home. And this use storyblok composable from the Nuxt module does a bunch of things for us. First, it uses the Storyblok API to grab our content matching this slug from the CDN. And then it sets up what's called Storyblok Bridge, which is the thing that lets us see live previews of content changes in the visual editor. And now story is equal to our root level block. And if we look at how I set up this page, the root level block is page, and it contains a field called title and a bunch of different blocks under a property called body. So we can resolve this block named page to a global component that's called page.view. And if we're using the Storyblok Nuxt module, all we have to do is create a folder called Storyblok, throw our components in there, and the module will make them all globally available. For example, here's our page component, the 2-column components, and then a whole bunch of other ones that I'm using to build content. So let's see what it looks like to create a new block and a new Vue component. Let's say I want to make a new section that has some of the really nice comments y'all have been leaving on the videos recently. Let's start off by making a component called testimonial.view, and inside of our script we can define a prop. And when we're building Storyblok components, they always take a single prop called block, which contains all of the different options we set in the Storyblok editor. Let's say we want to have a comment, the username of the commenter, name of the video, and then a link to the video. In our template, we can just treat this like any other prop. We can make a wrapper div, print out block.comment, the username, and then add a Nuxt link to our video. As you can see, this is plain old Vue code. There's nothing too crazy about it, and it doesn't feel like we have to learn a whole new syntax to use Storyblok. The only Storyblok specific thing we have to do is add vEditable equals block to the root element of our component. And this helps Storyblok Bridge create a connection between our component and the block in the visual editor. So if we push this code up and head over to the Storyblok editor, we need to set up this block over there too. If we open up our block library, we can create a block called testimonial and add all of those fields that we specified as props. And now we're ready to use it. So let's say I want to copy and paste this earlier section, but instead of this text here, I want to add a bunch of testimonials. So we can just throw in a testimonial, fill out the info, and see the changes being made in the visual editor. And if we hit save, this will save this content as a draft, so we can see it wherever we're using our preview access token. But let's say I'm happy with these changes and I'm ready to go live. Instead of save, we can hit publish. And this is one of the situations where I really like using Storyblok. If there's content that I want to change quickly, or if I want some of my friends help editing, it doesn't have to go through Git, so there's no rebuild or redeploy whenever content changes. This can make iterating on different copy really fast, and if you're working on a larger team with some non-technical people, this makes it really easy for them to use your components, but also add in whatever copy and translations they need. So I bet you're asking, what's the difference between this and Nuxt content? And in my opinion, I really like both tools. In fact, I'm using both on LearnVue. The only requirement for both of them to use components is that the components have to be available globally, and both Nuxt content and Storyblok do this when you're using the module. So you could use your Storyblok components in your Nuxt content and components you built for Nuxt content inside Storyblok. You might have to change the props around a little bit, but in terms of the style, they can both work the same. So if you haven't tried out Storyblok, I really recommend it. They have a great free tier, so try it out, see if it works well in your app, and let me know any questions you have.